Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Sunrise and Self-Devotion. So our question today is, if this world is a dream, can anything in this dream world be real? And so I am going to answer the question of how the self comes into being, and why this world will be dissolved, and how the world was created. So let's give reverence to our Self Supreme. Hail, hail to the primal light. Hail, hail to the true light. Hail, hail to the transparent light. Hail, hail to the light without beginning nor end. Hail, 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 hail to the primal light. Yes. So thank you for joining me today, and hail, hail to the primal light, our Self Supreme, the creator and manager whose self-replicas is the world. Ten Ra. Hail, hail, hail to the primal light, our primal light self manifest, whose self-replica has created the cosmos, the duality cosmos. Hail, hail, hail to the primal light, our self unmanifest, who is self-replica, is the realm, the duality realm. Asoham. Hail, hail to the primal light, our hail to our self supreme, self, the void manifest self, the witness self, the one most high, whose self-consciousness, whose self-replica is the duality universe. Hail, hail, hail to our self supreme, our true self, our real self, the void unmanifest self. And this is our self in stillness, no movement, inertia. I want to thank you. I thank all aspect of myself, and all of myself, all of yourself is in alignment to bring balance to the world. So I am going to explain how the world was created and how all the realms came into being and why everything is moving into balance right now. So the void unmanifest existed as the stillness self with no movement. The void encompasses the neutrons, the protons, the electrons, all bind together into a single unified self, dwelling inertia. There is no separation within the self. It's just in complete stillness. The void unmanifest wanted to create. So the void unmanifest manifests a baby self as the void manifest self. So after the void manifested itself, because the self wanted to create, the void manifest made a self replica of itself, and this becomes the duality universe, because the self goes to sleep to dream up the universe. And so the one most high, which is the void manifest self, is self replica, is dreaming up the universe, and the self is sleeping, and its consciousness is the dreamer. And so the self is all the unified self. It is not fragmented yet. So in what the self is going to do now, because what the self is doing is fragmenting itself into tiny particles. It's going to fragment itself into so many different various ways so that it can learn about itself. Because remember, our real and true self existed as the void in stillness. And now the self is going to keep fragmenting itself, and because it wants to learn about itself, all of its fragmented self. So what's happening right now? After the void manifest self creates the duality universe, the void manifests a baby self, the primalite self unmanifest. And so as an egg, as a self atom, so all of the neutron, the electron, and the proton is encased inside of this, and this is called a primordial egg, or the self atom, or the pure atom. So the void manifests itself, this egg, this atom, the self atom, because what it's going to do is going to shatter the atom, and this is how all of itself is going to be fragmented, and this is how it's going to explore itself. So after the void manifests now, into the duality universe that it has created, it shattered itself. It shattered its it shattered the pure atom, and this is the Big Bang that that science talk about. And so all the tiny particles, it got shattered into tiny particles, and this is how it became separated again. All the tiny particles, the electrical particles, separate and move to one side, and the magnetic particles separate and move to the other, and the void was moved between the electrical particles and the magnetic particles. And this now becomes the baby self, the unmanifest primalite self in tiny particles. That is the unmanifest self. So the primalite self, unmanifest, is going to be the self now that is going to create the duality realm, because each of the self is going to create a duality aspect of itself, so that when it comes down to making the duality world, everything is set in place. So the primalite self unmanifest make a replica of itself, because remember, it's existing in tiny particles that has no formation. So it makes a replica, and this replica becomes the duality realm, because all of the light becomes obscure behind all of the particles. And this is how it becomes the duality realm, because the self replica of the primalite self unmanifest is sleeping, and now is dreaming up the realm. And so the self replica now, after dreaming up the realm now, the primalite self unmanifest is going to make a baby self, because the baby self is going to go into the realm to create the duality cosmos. So as you see, everything is moving into duality. Everything that is being created is going within it's the aspect of its next self in the duality self. So every aspect is being created inside of a duality, where the self is sleeping and dreaming and not in awareness. And so the self unmanifest now manifests itself a baby self, and which is the baby self is the self manifest, because now the self has moved from tiny particles and it has fused itself into energy. And now I represent self manifest as the figure 8. And so it's still separated, wherein the self is separated from its consciousness, the pure consciousness. It's on one side, and the self is on one side. So this is self-manifest. This is its consciousness. And so it's encircled into the figure 8 with the void encasing it. So this is how it remains in non-duality. Right? So this is the self-manifest. Now the self-manifest have entered into the what? The duality realm. And now inside of this duality realm, self-manifest is going to create a duality cosmos. So let's just talk about the particles of self-manifest. Self-manifest makes a replica of itself, and the self replica is going to be the duality cosmos, which is here, because the self is gone to sleep and the light is obscure. See the light there? Light's obscure behind it and it's sleeping. So the self manifest now is the self, the primal light, because it was the first light that came in. The neutron, it's the neutron self, the neutral self, because it doesn't carry any charge. And of course, the sun rose up with of course, the primal, the self manifest. And so the sun is the electron, and of course it is self luminous. See it shining. And the self manifest itself, the self is not self luminous. It is the giver of light, and it has no charge. This is why it is in the dark energy. This here, it manifests and become dark matter. The reason why you don't see, I put it here because it is what is going to manifest the things, and because of you're going to be able to see it. So this is because you're seeing it. That's why because it should be dark also. But I wanted to differentiate between the self manifest and the dark matter from the dark energy. Because now this has now made into matter. It has manifested itself now into matter, and this is how the self is going to create from the dark energy to manifest it into the matter, into the things when it gets to art and raw level. And so it's the dark energy itself manifests. The sun, like I said, is the electrons, carries a negative charge. The sun does. And the heart, the heat, and its silence, stillness, and void. Now, on the other hand, the dark matter, which is the pure consciousness, it is the consciousness, it is the proton, and it carries a positive charge, and it is the magnetic particles, the magnetic energies that the particles have fused into the energies. And then here we have the mind. It is the mind, and it is cold, it is sound, and it's thought, it is creation and imagination. So this is how I have self-manifest being represented with into the infinity symbol. All right. And so now that we're going to self-manifest make the replica of itself, and this self is going to be the what? The duality cosmos. Because why the self fragmenting itself in so many different aspects? Because the self wanted to learn about itself, so it takes itself apart, and eventually you have to put your puzzle back together again. So this is what the self is doing right now. It's taking itself apart, making a puzzle, and then it has to put itself back together. So the self manifest makes the duality cosmos, and now that it has made the duality cosmos, the tiny particles, they're fusing together to form bonds to create the elements. So they take you can take the particles in different combination to create varieties of different things, the various elements. So this is what the self manifest has done now, is to create these elements that when its baby self come into being, its baby self is going to use all of these elements now to fuse them together to create different creation. So now the primal light self manifests, bringing into being a baby self called the primal light Aten Ra. Primal light Aten Ra rises up, and when Aten Ra rises, our self-consciousness, because remember, the self has fragmented itself, and even fragmented, because when we started out as the void manifest self, it was one self. The self is all merged together like this, with the feminine and masculine principle merged together. All the self had to do was to make a replica of its consciousness and its son, and give it to its self replica, another self replica like this, because the self is fusing together like this, and it becomes the duality universe. But when you trickle down now, the self fragments itself and separates itself now to this level. The masculine principle is separated from the feminine principle. Remember that happened with the self unmanifest. The particles separated. Yeah, so now self manifest has created its baby self. Its baby self rise up, Aten Ra, and the self consciousness rise up, because of the two separate energies. One is rising from the light, the other one is rising from the consciousness. Right? That's how it separates itself. So the self manifest after baby self Aten Ra now has its light, and the consciousness arose, and so does the self consciousness arose from the pure consciousness. So what self Aten Ra is going to do now? Primal light self Aten Ra, she makes a replica of her son. She puts it parallel to the consciousness, because she wants to make a non-dual consciousness for herself. So she makes a non-dual consciousness for herself. She have her son, and I'm sorry about that. She have a little bit. She have her consciousness. She have her son. She have herself, and she have her self consciousness. So she makes another replica of her son. She puts it behind her self consciousness, her masculine self, because her feminine self and her masculine self are separated. So she puts it behind herself, and she makes her first being. This is her masculine self, or masculine being. That's what she made, her masculine self. And now she makes a replica of her consciousness, and she gives it to her dual nature, her self consciousness, which is she is a 10, and this is a men. She gives it to a man, and she says, you have to write out your destiny, because I am going to create the world. I am the self that is going to create and manage the world. I am going to make self-replicas, and each of my self-replica must play a part in being the world. Do you accept this? A man says yes, and he writes out his destiny, and he wants to enter into the world, and He's going to enter into the world into the duality. And so she now says, okay, now she's going to make a self-replica. Now that Aten has written, Aten has Amen written, write out his destiny with her. She makes a self-replica. Of course, the self-consciousness, the the masculine self is going to arise from Amen, right? Remember, she's Aten, and this is Amen. This is herself. This is all one self. But the self has fragmented itself so that it can explore all of itself, to know everything about itself. So this is why it fragments itself and separate the masculine from the feminine. And so she makes her first self-replica. Its self-consciousness arise, its male aspect arise. This first self-replica is the primal teacher. The primal teacher is going to be the teacher that is going to make all baby self, and it's going to go within all of the primal baby self. That when you wake up, this baby self is going to teach you about yourself, because you are going to enter inside of a dream into duality. You're going to be sleeping, and the consciousness will be dreaming. You will not be in awareness of yourself. You will not know yourself. And the only way that you are going to come to truth is when the supreme teacher rise up within you to teach you. Otherwise, you are only going to be exploring the dream and the illusion. Because if everything is being created inside of a dream, can anything in this dream be real? So she writes out her destiny with Aten Ra, and then her self-consciousness, which is Asar, Osiris, which is now known as Shiva Shambho, writes out its destiny. Shiva Shambho's destiny is to be the liberator from all the selves. So what he does is he transmutes you from the matter back into the energy. And so that's what's going to happen. You're going to transfer back from this matter back into energy. You're going to need Shiva Shambho's help. And so that is the destiny of Shiva Shambho. So the next self that rises up is Supreme Ra. She explained to Supreme Ra that she's going to be the self of earth that is going to be the world. With her assisting her, managing the world, she's going to be right next to her and managing the world, supervising her. Supreme Ra agrees to that. And so our self-consciousness, also arises, and our self-consciousness is set. And so the next self that is to that she replicates is Nut, and Nut is the sky. Because remember, when each self is rising, its self-consciousness rises also. They're given a replica of the non-dual consciousness, because everyone has to be in awareness. They write out their destiny, and Supreme Ra, after they write out their destiny, then they write out their destiny with Aten Ra, and so the self-replica of Supreme Ra is Set. The self-replica of Nut is the Archangel Gabriel. And the self-replica of the primal teacher is Asar, Osiris, and is now known as Shiva Shambho. So these are the first beings, and so here they are one self, but because the self has fragmented itself so that it can learn about itself, all of these selves are going to enter the world separately. Righty? So the first self-replica, who is the supreme teacher, she is not going to enter the world into duality, because she has to remain with her light because she's the teacher, so she have to be in awareness so that she can teach all the one that rises up. Supreme Ra is going to be the world. So Supreme Ra makes a replica of herself. Like all of these selves, they also make self-replicas of themselves so that they can enter into the world. And also they make a baby self. And so Supreme Ra, no, her self-replica is, one is Saturn and the next one is Amun-Ra. And Amun-Ra becomes her body. And the next self-replica, Nut no becomes the sky. And when you look in the sky and you see all of those stars, those are the suns of all of the beings in the world. Your soul, that's the light from the soul. So the soul has fragmented itself, and I will explain that in a little bit. So everyone that's entering the world, you fragment yourself, you make baby selves, and you come into the world. You make self-replicas, because this is how the self is exploring the world. It wants to know every single thing about itself in fragmented forms. And so now that Supreme Ra is creating the world, when the world is created, this is when all of the selves are going to come into the world. So this is Aten Ra becomes the screen on which the world is built. And so Supreme Ra now, her body is Amun Ra. And this is the son of Amun Ra, but because Amun Ra is going to be the duality invisible world, Amun Ra goes to sleep. And Amun Ra is here. Now, Geb now is a self-replica of the primal teacher, and so Geb is going to be the visible world, and so she goes to sleep because she's the one that is dreaming up all the things in the world. And of course, Aten Ra is helping with the balance of the world, and also the prana that is the world. Aten Ra is a self-replica from Aten Ra that becomes that living breath is Aten Ra, and water again is also Aten Ra in the manifest form. So she manifests herself into the form of water, and so this is how this is the screen of the world. It's like a movie. This is Geb, or this is her son. She's sleeping and she's dreaming of this world. After this world is so beautiful now, there's Amen Ra becomes the invisible world, and that is below the world. So what is happening now with Supreme Ra now? During when it's sunrise, half of the time she have her sun on, and the other half her sun is off. So know that now what's happening is that Supreme Ra is in awareness when her light is on. So when at sunrise, Supreme Ra rise up, she goes over the world. When it's sunset, she goes to sleep. And this is how the first ego was born. The first God came into being when the first time Supreme Ra went to sleep. Her consciousness is sleeping and dreaming up the world. And what her consciousness has done is created an avatar to explore the world. It does not want a Supreme Ra to explore the world, because anytime Supreme Ra goes to sleep, she goes obscure behind her consciousness. And so the consciousness creates an avatar. This is the Supreme Ego. So in the night, she's exploring the world as the Supreme Ego. She goes under the underworld into Amen Ra, which is her body, and then she comes up, she rises up. When she comes up here, the Supreme Ego does not want her to wake up. She's sleeping and she's in a deep trance. So Aten Ra has to wake her up. So Aten Ra wakes her up, she comes awake, and here comes the sun, go over the world again. When it goes over down the horizon, she goes to sleep again. And guess what? The mind being arise again, which is consciousness arise. And again, she enters the underworld, the invisible world, as the conscious, as the mind being consciousness. When she comes up again to the horizon, Aten Ra, Primalite Aten Ra, wakes her up, and she does this again. If Aten Ra does not wake up Supim Ra will never wake up, because the consciousness is trancing her inside of the sleep and does not want to wake up. That's why sometimes you see there's a battle between the self, because the consciousness does not want her to wake up. And sometimes when she is so brutalized by the consciousness, when Supim Ra, when Aten Ra wakes her up, when Aten Ra wakes up Supim Ra, she has to rest, and Aten Ra has to use, Brahman is the sun that goes up in the horizon and goes over the world. So by the time Supim Ra is ready to go back down to sleep again, then Brahman, she had enough time to heal and be able to go back down into the invisible world, into the underworld again, and to rise up the next morning. And this ritual, she just keep this ritual going. This is a role that she has to play as the sun for the light for of the world, and also to go into the darkness, into the invisible world. Like I said, we have two worlds. We have the invisible world. When you go to sleep, you go into the invisible world. The invisible world is a dream within a dream. Because in the first world, Supim Ra is creating this world, this visible world here, and in the second, in the second world, in Amun Ra, in her body, is when when you're inside of this world and you go to sleep, you go into this world. So this has become a dream within a dream. So while you are inside of her dream, you go to sleep, and this is what's happening. Everyone that is entered the world. First, all of the Supreme Selves, they make baby selves, and they make two self-replica, and they enter the world, they write out their destiny. The same process happens. They write out their destiny, what the role they're going to play. They enter into the world, and so once you enter into the world, what the Supreme Ra does, she gives you a replica of her tainted consciousness. This consciousness has no light. She says, to explore my dream creation, you have to use my consciousness to explore it. So when all the selves come, they're given a replica of the duality consciousness. They go inside of her dream and they're exploring it. But what's happening as soon as you get the consciousness, because remember, the consciousness is tainted. And first of all, it doesn't want Supreme Ra to rise up. Aten Ra have to wake her up every morning. If Aten Ra doesn't wake her up, she cannot wake up by herself. And so when we come into the world, this is the same thing that happened with us, because the consciousness is tainted, because its light is obscure and it cannot find its light. So what it's doing now, it's scanning, looking for its light, and its mind become tainted. Its mind become corrupted, and it become deceitful, it become habitual. All of these things started happening within the consciousness, because the consciousness could not find its light. And because it cannot find its light, it's getting corrupted. And so when each of the selves now come into being and they're coming into the world, she gives them a replica of her tainted consciousness. And everyone in the world is exploring the world in this tainted consciousness. And so the first baby self now, all of the Supreme Self now, they're able to enter the world because they were first. They are replicas of all the Supreme Selves. I know some of the baby self of the Supreme Selves, but the first baby self that is to come into being is Aset, and her dual nature, her feminine, her masculine principle, which is Asar, and who is known as Shiva now, but also known as which is the Jesus, the enlightened is him, and not Jesus, the consciousness being that takes your light and imprison the souls. So, because what they do is they impersonate you. That's what they do. They are impersonators. So when the ego rises up, the ego starting to impersonate the self. And this is the reason why everyone is exploring the world as the ego and thinking that it is the real self, because it is an impersonator. It impersonates the self. So the first two baby self are Shiva and Aset, which is Heru, Horus, and Aset. And so what's happening now is that they wrote out their destiny with Supreme Ra, and so when they wrote out their destiny now, they enter into the world because they are going to they're separating themselves also. So remember, this is the world. So I'm gonna rest it down. So we know that the world is this, wherein the invisible world is below the visible world. So when you go to sleep, you enter into the invisible world. When you lose the body, you enter into the invisible world. So there is no heaven and hell. This is just what all the beings them torment you and put you within, they swallow you and put you in hell. This is what they do. So there is the visible world, the earth, the invisible world below the earth, which is this darkness, and this is the light, where things are manifest and you can see it. It is in darkness, but because it has the light, this is the reason why the things are manifesting in this world. So when Aset arise and her dual nature or self-consciousness also arise, they're doing the same thing too. They are making self-replicas. So she makes a self-replica, two self-replicas. First, Aset makes two self-replicas because she first came into the world as a god, and she came with her baby self not with a baby self, and she comes into with duality, that she have no awareness of herself but just as the God self, because the consciousness took over the self. And so each of these self now, one of her self replica is Mahat and the other self replica is Hathar. And so their self-consciousness also arises too, and this is Heru, the self, and this is Het Heru, and this is Ptah, right? And so that's how they come for each self. So she first entered the world with her sixth self like this. Then the second time when she comes around, and when she leaves the world out of that body and she's entering, she and Shiva, she and Horus enter in with their baby self. But Heru, he became enlightened thousands of years ago, way before Aset. Aset just became now enlightened in this world, and so his story is the story of Jesus, the real Jesus, but the fake Jesus, which is the consciousness being, who's going around telling everyone Heru's story and taking impersonating Heru. So that's what they do. So when you come into the world, the consciousness, the tainted consciousness, does not let you explore the world. You come into the world and the consciousness binds you in its magnetic energy. You cannot rise up, and only the consciousness creates an avatar to explore the world. And so this is what happened to everyone that comes into the world. So all of the being that comes into, you enter the world, like one of your self replica enter as into a body, the next one enter disembodied. Its consciousness does the same thing. Enter self-consciousness, enter in a body, next one enter disembodied. So this is how we are exploring the world, in all of these different fragmented forms. So ourself in the world right now, you have these six selves exploring the world. You are so fragmented. This is the reason for all the problem in the world. You have another self of yours too as a human being, fragmented from you. This is the problem, that it is a self puzzle. You have to be on the journey of self truth, to putting all of your self puzzle back together into one unified self. You never came into this existence to serve any god or to look for God. The gods are your self-replicas that is exploring the world. This is your self-replica, enter the world and is exploring the world. And guess what? The consciousness took over them and they couldn't explore the world as themselves. They're not in awareness of themselves. They're only exploring the world as the mind being, the mind avatar, as consciousness. So they're exploring the world as consciousness, and they know they did not want to evolve themselves, and they rebel against Aten Ra when it was time for them to come into the world and come as a baby self, and so that they would have their soul light would be on, and they would have some light, and they would be able to come into awareness of themselves by arising the supreme teacher within, so that the supreme teacher could pull the ego off of their self. But from the moment they enter into this dream, they never explore the world as their real self. Just like you, from the moment you come into this world, you never explore this world, this dream, as your real self, because you've been exploring the world what? As the mind avatar. You've been exploring the world as the mind being. And so the time has come now when you have to rise up, you have to wake up from sleeping, and you have to, this mind avatar that you are exploring the world as, the ego false self, this ego false self has to come into this awareness and get the mind engaged so that the mind can go and seek its real self. Because you, the ego false self, this ego has to be castrated. But what? The ego does not want to be castrated. So the ego is fighting this battle for the self to stay in a trance. And so the mind, this is why the mind now have to come into awareness that the ego is not its real self. Its real self is in there, entranced in the dream. And so, yeah, you want to get the mind engaged so the mind itself can go looking for itself. Because when you start self-inquiring, within the self-soul is the supreme teacher. The supreme teacher will rise up. The self-soul dwells into the void right in the center of the chest right here. There is a void. There's a void right there. Remember what the void is? The void is our real self in stillness. It's the unmanifest self. The void is the what? The unmanifest self. And so right in here is the void, because remember, it is the void that is the real self and wanted to learn about itself. So that's why it's fragmenting itself, and everywhere there is void, because it is learning about itself. And so when you come into realization, you too can learn about yourself, all the different aspects, how you fragment yourself in all the different aspects of yourself, and learn about the different selves playing different roles. And so within the chest right here, you have the self heart. This is where the self dwells, in the void. And so if you have not given your soul away and you didn't make contract with one of the disembodied self who are the gods exploring the world in ignorance and stealing your light, stealing your self soul and putting it in slavery, then because you need the self soul, you need the self soul in the body for you to get the supreme teacher to arise, so that the supreme teacher can arise up and pull this ego. Because this is now how you are exploring the world. This is the consciousness that you, when you come into the world, you're given a replica of this consciousness. This tainted consciousness has no light. The light is obscure. There's no light. The light is obscure behind the consciousness. Consciousness cannot find this light. This is how the first God world came into being, and this is the supreme ego. Because now it's all about itself. It wants to find this light, and it will go to whatever it has to do to take someone light and be deceptful. It is going to do it. And so when you came into this world, Supreme Ra gives you a replica of this consciousness. And what's happening is that the consciousness obscure yourself. It obscure yourself, and you yourself cannot rise up. So this is the consciousness that you want. This is the non-dual consciousness. But in this world, you cannot get this non-dual consciousness because this consciousness is so tainted. This is how Supreme Ra, our consciousness, is. Because she is the non-duality and she is the manager of the world. The Supreme manager of the world. So because now you're given the consciousness that doesn't have any light, this is how you are experiencing the world. Experiencing the world as a duality being. So the consciousness take front seat and yourself is hiding in the back. Yourself is hiding in the back, being in obscurity, cocoon into the magnetic energy of the consciousness, and it's looped into its imagination. And so what needs to happen now is that when the Supreme, you call the Supreme Teacher to arise, and you know what awakes the Supreme Teacher to arise? Self-inquiry. She's not sleeping, she's in stillness in a meditation. So you have to call her to arise out of this meditation, out of stillness, so that she can come and pull the void. She can put the void between and pull the ego off of the self. Once she does that, this is how you will dwell. She'll pull the void off of the self. The self will be on the left side and the consciousness will be on the right side and the void will be between. Remember, she dwells in the void. And so this is called the partial duality being. This is how you want to exist now. You don't want to continue to exist where you are obscure behind consciousness. And the consciousness has created an avatar, this ego false self, to explore the world, this God self. And you are exploring the world this whole entire time. For many ages, you come and you go, you come and you go. And you know what? You never got a chance to explore the world as yourself. You've been only exploring the world as the ego. This ego false self, this mind avatar, this God being, the dream character. And so right now is the time for you to call the Supreme Teacher to awake. There will be a video with what you need to do to awake the Supreme Teacher within, because for all these ages, no one has ever figured out the truth except for the very few. So this is the reason why only the Supreme Teacher within, it's only the ones who have gone within themselves and self-inquire came to this truth. It is not outside of you. You're getting yourself busy in everything in this dream. If this world is a dream, can anything in this world be real? There is no real in this world except yourself. And yourself is being obscured by the dream character. We are being enslaved inside of this dream. Yeah, and so it's time now to awake from the dream. You have to wake up, because when you go to sleep, because you are existing right now as the ego false self, when this ego false self goes to sleep and is dreaming, do you know that you are inside of a dream? You don't know. Even sometimes you want to pee, and if you pee in your dream, what happened? You pee up your bed. How many times has that happened to you? Because you don't know that you are not in a dream. You are sleeping and you are dreaming, and you are inside of a dream while you're doing this. If you don't wake up, you will never know. So that's what needs to happen. The self, this is you. You're inside of the dream. You're sleeping. Just like this baby, when the baby is inside the mother's womb, look at it. It's sleeping to the whole process. The Supreme Teacher rise up within the self-soul. The Supreme Teacher is the one that is doing this work. It's making the form. Yeah, the Supreme Teacher is doing this. Making the form. But this baby here is sleeping, it have no awareness, nothing. It's just sleeping in the womb. You understand? When the Supreme Teacher comes in here and the self goes in here, the Supreme Teacher is doing all of this job. This is the same thing of how the self is into this dream right now. So this is the dream. This, yourself is inside this dream, sleeping, unaware of itself, unaware that it's inside of a dream. The only time yourself is going to rise up and know that it's in a dream is when you wake up from sleeping. You can remember when you are sleeping and dreaming, you don't know. It's only when you wake up. The same thing. You have to wake up. If you don't wake up, you'll never know that you're inside of a dream. So you want to wake up so the supreme teacher within will rise up again. The supreme teacher rise up to create the body. The supreme teacher rise up again to pull this ego off of you. You have to call it into awareness so the supreme teacher can rise up, pull this ego off the self, put void between, and here you're going to dwell as a partial duality being, because your consciousness over here is still going to be duality. Because remember, you came into this dream world, you're given a replica of the consciousness to explore the dream world. So you're still having the consciousness, the ego, but you're not having an ego self to explore the world. You're now exploring the world as your real and true self. You're awake, you know what's going on, you know what's happening, you know you're inside of a dream, and know you want to be liberated from this dream. Yourself in a wakeful state want to be liberated from this dream. You come to the realization that you have been a slave. You have been a slave in this dream. So yes, this is the truth of this dream, that you are being enslaved inside the dream by your mind. The supreme ego has enslaved everyone inside of this dream, because everyone is wearing consciousness, the self-replica of this consciousness. And everyone is going about in this world and they're thinking that this mind, this ego false self is their real self. They're thinking that they are the mind. This is the reason why you have to chant, I am not this body. This body is a dream creation to explore this dream visible world. I am not this body. I am not this mind. I am not this ego false self. This God being, the dream character. Yes, you are not this dream character. You are not this God self. You are not this mind being, this ego false self. You are your primal light self. You are the eternal self. You are the void self. You have to come into truth, come into awareness of who you are so that you can rise up. Because remember, you did not know yourself. The self has fragmented self so that it can learn about itself when it's fragmented. And to know when you rise up, you will learn about all your fragmented selves. Yeah. And you'll go up the ladder to meet each of yourselves. So right now, the self, supreme, the stillness self, the void, the unmanifest self is moving the world into balance right now, because she has fragmented the self so that she could learn about all of herself. So the self fragmented itself so that it could learn about its fragmented self. And now that it has mastered all of itself and has mastered the duality, this is the reason why this duality world is coming to an end. The duality cosmos is moving into balance. The duality realm is moving into balance. And the duality universe is moving into balance. The self, the void manifest, is the duality universe. So that is the first aspect of the self that is moving into balance. Because remember, the void manifest self makes a replica of itself to be the universe and makes it into a duality. And now, right now, all of the selves are in alignment, because the self is moving this duality universe into balance. It's going to return back to the balanced non-dual self. And then after the universe move into balance, then the realm, the duality realm, is going to move into balance. And that is the self-replica of the unmanifest. And then the next one up next is the duality cosmos. And the duality cosmos is the self-replica of the manifest self. And now this world here that we are in, this is a replica of the primal light, Aten Ra. And this is going to be the last world that is going to move into balance. Because all the other selves, they first have to move into balance first. So know this truth. We are inside of a dream. This is a dream creation. And the self created this dream so that it could explore itself in the fragmented forms into this duality that you enter the world and you do not know yourself. And now you have to come into awareness that you are the self supreme. You are the unmanifest, the void self. And you have fragmented yourself into all of these forms. And you have entered into your dream. And you don't know yourself. And the duality consciousness has cocooned you. And you have been exploring the world only as the mind being. Everyone into the world, what are they exploring the world as? The false self, the ego false self, called the God self, called the dream character. This is everyone in the world is a God. Either you are disembodied or you are in a body. Because remember, when we came into the world, we make records of ourselves. We enter the world in a body, and we also enter the world disembodied. So all the beings that the deities that everyone is worshiping called the gods, they are our self-replicas. And this is the reason why they've been playing tricks on us to take our soul, which is the light. And so we just have to come into realization that do not search outside of yourself for nothing. You have to look within yourself, because right in your chest right here, this is where the void is. In the void is where your self soul dwells, unless you have given it to one of the gods. You need to retrieve it back, because you need the supreme teacher is within the self soul. It's in void, it's in stillness. And it only arises through self-inquiry. You have to self-inquire, and it's going to rise up to your question, to answer your question. This is the reason why many ones are searching outside for gods and this, and they never come to truth, because you're searching outside of yourself. If everything is being created inside of a dream, can any of it be real? This world is a dream. Nothing in this world is real. It's all an illusion. Only yourself is real. And so remember, when you are sleeping and dreaming, do you know that you are sleeping? When you're sleeping and you want to pee, and you think that you think you pee up your bed because you think that the dream is real. You do not know that it's not real. It's only when you wake up you see your bed wet and you say, oh, I pee myself. It's the same thing. The self is sleeping inside of the dream and does not know that it is inside of a dream, because you are exploring the world as what? The mind being. The mind created the avatar. So the self have to wake up. Now that you're coming into realization, the mind have to get engaged to go find its real self. You are the self and you have a mind. What has your mind done? Your mind has imprisoned you and created an avatar. And so now the mind have to come to realization that though this is not my real self is hiding behind me, and I need to go find it. It's a hide and seek game you're playing with your mind. So the mind have to come into this realization. So this is what you want to get engaged. You want the mind to get engaged, and you want to engage the soul, because the soul is the aware self in the body. The soul is aware, because the soul is not in awareness of where its baby self is. You want to get the soul attention, because the soul is the light. When you look up in the sky, that is your soul. Your soul, its light is on. So it have awareness, but it's in a trance. It's in the void, and it's not in awareness. That's why the gods them trick you to get it, so that they can use your light. But you want to get your soul engaged with you, so that you can go find yourself that is hiding behind the mind and release it. And the soul is going to help you. And then, because the soul is right here in the void, because remember, what is the void? The void is yourself in stillness. Yeah, the void is yourself, the unmanifest self. And so when you call into the void, this is when you are going to bring your mind down into the void. Get out of your third eye. I know this world I've been telling you, go in your third eye and go in your mind. You don't want to do that. You're never going to find your truth. You're never going, you could meditate from now until kingdom come, and you'll never come into this realization. You have to get out of your mind and get out of your third eye. Go into the void right in the center of your chest. The void in there is going to purify the mind. The self in there, when you self inquire and you ask, who am I? How did I come into being? What is the source of my existence? What is the source of my existence allowing me this world experience? Keep questioning yourself. Who is this I? Where does this thought arise from? Everything you keep questioning. This is when the self that is sleeping, your supreme teacher within the self soul, is going to rise up and it's going to answer you, because it is the supreme teacher's job. Because remember, you're exploring the world right now as a duality being, wherein that yourself is hiding behind the mind, and the mind has taken precedent over the self. This is what the supreme teacher is going to do. She's going to pull this ego off of you, off of the self, and put void between it. And this is how you're going to come awake. This is how you become awake and become an enlightened. So all the people who are talking about they're enlightened, if you have not given up this ego false self, and the supreme teacher did not rise up within you and pull this ego off of yourself and put void between you, you have not been awakened. Because I hear a lot of people saying this, they're enlightened. No, you're not enlightened, because you're still exploring as the ego false self. You must say, I no longer want to explore this world as this ego false self, this God being. I want to explore this world as my real self, because your self is sleeping and it does not know that it's watching the dream like a movie, but it does not know that it is sleeping, because it is trance into the mind. The mind is trance in it. The ego false self is trance in it, in its magnetic energy. It cannot rise up. Only way it's going to rise up is if you question it. Because what's going to happen is that the mind is going to get curious. When you say, who am I? It's going to say, but I am this ego self. You're going to say, no, that ego self is not. It's going to get curious to go find itself. It's going to look to find itself. And this is how it's going to be unraveled from the magnetic energy. The supreme teacher is going to rise up from the self soul, because the soul has light and you need the self soul. Don't let them trick you and give away your soul. You cannot do this without your self soul. If you don't have the soul in the body, this will never happen for you. So all the ones who are calling on God, know that this will never happen for you. This truth will never happen for you. And this is the reason why they are sending me ridiculous and stupid messages. Because, oh, Jesus is going to come and Jesus is going to save you and you need to pray. And I'm saying, stop your ignorance. It's time for truth, and stop spreading your ignorance. Because this truth will never happen for you, because you have given your soul away to someone. You have given your soul away to their disembodied self, who are exploring the world in ignorance. They love to trick us. People are now obsessed about aliens. Do you know who the aliens are? They are yourself, the same one who are playing tricks on you. They are the magnetic beings. There are no aliens coming to take over this world. They are yourself in this world playing tricks on you, as they've always been playing tricks on you. They play tricks on you for you to give them your light. They play tricks on you to make you do ridiculous things, because you know why? Their mind, they are existing as the mind, and their mind is tainted, their mind is corrupted, they're mad. Most of the gods, they're mad. You see how you say mad people in the world? Because their mind has gone crazy. The same thing with the gods. If you dwell in your mind like this is why everyone is suffering from mental illness. You're dwelling in your mind, in your imagination and your memory. That's what the gods them do always. And they don't rest their mind. They're supposed to rest their mind, but because there are a gang set of gods, they're fighting amongst each other for the souls. So if they go to sleep to rest their mind, the other gods them come and try to take the souls from them. You want to know the truth. You want to see things the way that they actually are, and stop following illusion, and stop sending me stupid and ridiculous messages, because I seek the truth from within yourself. I don't ask you to believe me. I said self-inquire. So you see what I'm doing? I'm teaching truth, and I'm saying call the supreme teacher within yourself to rise up, because right now you are exploring the world as the God being, the mind avatar, the ego false self, and you can never know this truth if you are exploring the world as the ego. When you came into this existence, remember what I said? Supreme Ra, this is her mind, the supreme ego. She gave you a replica of her mind, and she said, you can explore my dream with this consciousness. It's like you go to Disney World and you enter Disney World, you have to wear a costume and you put on a mask. This ego is the mask that you're wearing. You have to take off this mask. Why you think that when they're doing any God rituals and stuff, they wear a mask and they cover their face? Because this is the mask. They're trying to tell you this. I'm telling you, all of those beings, they're just playing tricks on you because they love the pleasures of the world. And when you go and you have sexual intercourse with them and all these things that you're doing with them, they don't want to give it up. Because if the real self rise up, the ego cannot exist. Believe me, I have been through this whole process. And this is why I can share this truth, and I can encourage ones that don't follow blindly. If everything is being created inside of a dream, can anything in this dream be real? There's nothing real in here. You're too invested into this dream and into all of your things that you have gathered and all your false self-identity. You need to take and strip yourself down back to your pure self and know that you are not this body. You're not the things them. You're not your sexual orientation. You are not this mind, this ego false self. You are the pure self. You have never done any sin. In this world, it's only the God them exploring the world. You're God in a body and God disembodied. The self has not explored the world. It has been imprisoned this whole time. You have never done one sin, not one action. Only the gods have done all the action. So they have controlled your mind with fear and all these things. And if you don't face your fear and face them and question them and say, I know who I am. I'm telling you, for weeks when they first came to me, I had to be chanting this to them. I know who I am. First, I had to make the mind, this duality mind that I explore the world as, know this, that I know who I am so that it could stop being afraid. Because I was terrified of them because they come with their magnetic energy and they want to torture you. You know what I'm saying? Because what? They don't want me to speak this truth. Because for ages, when anyone came into this truth, when anyone self-inquired and came into this truth, they would come on them and torture them. So they couldn't speak it. Why they were Rumi, Buddha, because they impersonate the self, like Jesus is an impersonator of Heru. Heru evolved and became Shiva. So the real Jesus is actually Shiva because the beings they impersonated Heru and spread rumors around the world, and everybody is going to them and giving them their soul. They couldn't take the form of and trick the world of Buddha, because Buddha came in a time when he told everyone that if anyone show up as me, do not believe them. So what they did was they changed the name of Heru and Horus in the Bible story and give you Jesus. But Jesus' story is Heru's story and it's Shiva now. So know that Shiva is the real Jesus. They're impersonators. When your family members pass away and you're going into the invisible world, but you're trying to conjure them up, these are all the beings that are coming up. These are not your family members. They are impersonators. When I first came into my truth, they impersonated the supreme self, the primal light self. If you don't practice discernment, they will trick you. I was practicing discernment because I asked, is this the true light? Is this the primal light? They came as a primal light. Jesus came. All of them came. They try to trick you because they want you. They impersonate the real self for you to think that's them, and then they take your soul and enslave you. But I was so strong on discernment. Yeah, I was very strong on discernment, and I kept asking them, and I never make a decision until I know exactly who I am speaking with. And I always say, is this the true light? Is this the light without beginning or end? Is this the transparent light? And they're going to take the check. They say no. because they know they're not transparent and they're not the true and real light. If you don't ask them these questions, you're just going to be following blindly. They beat me up, they beat me up, they beat me up. All of them come and beat me up because they do not want me to speak this truth. But no, all of ourselves, the Supreme Self that I mentioned earlier, they're in alignment, bringing the world into balance. All of these ego gods, they are not going to win this time. For many ages, they win over, and this is why this duality world kept going, and the sickness in the world just kept continuing. But no, the self has mastered this duality, and all of the realms, the universe, duality universe is first moving into balance. Because right now, the void and manifest, I didn't even know about this self. I just now learned about the void manifest self, because I only was experiencing Aten Ra, the primal light self, the self manifest, and the self unmanifest. And now I learn about the void manifest self and the void unmanifest self. And all of this is moving into balance. All of the self is moving into balance. They're self replicas, because all of these realms are their self replicas. And so the world is now moving into what? Balance. Everything, all of the selves have to wake up. You now have to wake up from the dream. You have to wake up from the dream so that you can come into the real and know yourself. So the time has come now when you what? You have to wake up from the dream. You are sleeping and you don't know that you're sleeping because you're in a dream. And so I want to say now, I want to encourage everyone, do not search outside of yourself for anything. Connect with yourself. Get out of your mind. Get out of your third eye. I know they've been programming you for a long time. I want you to put your hands on your heart, your left hand, right hand over, and I want you to inquire within yourself. So I hope that you have your soul in your body, because the self supreme right now is moving the world into balance and returning the souls back onto many ones. So when your soul return to you, do not call on any god anymore. Just self-inquire within yourself so that you can come into this truth. All right, so that's what I want you to do. And so now I am going to just close out saying this chant. This is 3 chants, this vibration. It breaks up the magnetic energy. That is the vibration of self-manifest, and it helps to purify your mind. And if you bring your mind down into the void and be chanting is the vibration of Aten Ra, primal light Aten Ra, and it breaks up the magnetic energy around you, and it seals in whatever truth that you want that you're speaking, any affirmations that you're affirming to yourself. And the vibration of the unmanifest is this one here. We're gonna go between after break up the vibration. Then it's our turn now. And so we're going to follow this song here. We're going to go between it. We're just going to say it a couple of times. Asoham. Asoham. Now it's our turn. Asoham. Asoham. So you want to practice this, and you wait, you after the so hum, you just wait your turn, and when it becomes silent, then it's your turn to repeat it. So hum. So this will be the chant and response. So after the chant, you respond by repeating it in the silent space. All right, so try to practice this. I am going to put the video up for that. I want to thank you for joining me today. All right, I said hail, hail to the primal light. Hail, hail to the true light. Hail, hail to the transparent light. Hail, hail to the light without beginning nor end. Hail, hail to the primal light. Hail, hail to the primal light. Hail, hail to the primal light, our self supreme, Aten Ra. Hail, hail to the primal light, our primal light self, manifest. Hail, hail to the primal lights, our primal light self, unmanifest. Awesome. Hail, hail to the primal light, the void manifest self, the one most high, the witness self. Hail, hail to the primal light. Hail, hail to the self, our self supreme, the void, the unmanifest self. Hail, hail to the primal light. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Remember to self-inquire. Remember to practice discernment. Remember to connect in the void right here in the center of your chest. Connect to yourself, connect to your self-soul, and call within your self-soul to your supreme teacher within to rise up within you so that the supreme teacher can what? Pull this ego off of the self, off of yourself, so that you can come awake inside of this dream. Liberation from this dream. All is myself and I alone exist. And all things created must come to an end. And everything that I have created, I demolish. Everything that I have created, I demolish. I demolish all demons, all monsters, all devils, all satans. Everything that I have created, I demolish. I return to my ultimate true state. I return to my ultimate true state. I transition from being to non-being. I transition from being to non-being. I move effortless with ease from the manifest to the unmanifest. I move effortlessly with ease from manifest to the unmanifest. All is myself and I alone exist, and all of myself must return unto me. It's time for us to move to non-duality. Yes, it's time for us to move to balance and harmony. It's time for us to move to our truth and to our true self and to our true nature. I bow to you in love, in light, and in truth. Hail, hail to the primal light. Liberation from this dream. Thank you so much. Remember to join me here every morning at 6 for self-devotion. Not every morning, on Wednesdays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursday for self-devotion, and on Sundays at 6 for stillness and self-inquiry. Thank you.